Thank you, Larry. And thank all of you for being here, for the chance to be together. Tuesday night, 50 of us who gathered for the watch party here at church filed out earlier and more quietly than we filed in that night. To the lapel pins we swept up and the red, white, and blue balloons we popped and put in the garbage as we cleaned up after ourselves. And we woke Wednesday to news that wasn't a surprise at that point, but hit hard. Wednesday, I was not ministerial. I would describe it as Hebrew Scripture's angry prophet instead, and that's probably generous. I was wanting and imagining what the Universalists in their 1899 declaration called the just retribution for sins. I just wanted it for everyone who voted for Trump, for them to get a full measure of what my loved ones might suffer. I imagined it all in painstaking detail. And I felt badly about it and confessed it to two colleagues I talked to, and each of them added their own gory detail. It didn't feel good. Not for someone who actually has always wanted to ease the tide of human suffering and joined with others to imagine how to do the same. But I guess at least if ministry doesn't work out, I now know I can probably write some good horror films. How did you respond? Were you numb for a little while? Or did you weep like two teachers, high school teachers I know, who entered classrooms of sobbing students, they said this week? Did you spend time convincing yourself you'd be okay, and maybe you will be? Did you call friends or go back to bed and pull the covers over your head or call in sick to work if you were able to do that? Like the stages of grief, we will all move through whatever this means for us differently, depending on who we are and where we find ourselves in this moment and how others see us, too. Shannon Fong, who's here today, our affiliated community minister, one of them said at a gathering of UU ministers that was here this week that he invited us to think about whether or not what we were feeling, those of us who named it as anger or sadness, might not be perhaps labeled as betrayal. And that felt right. I think a lot of us felt and feel betrayed. And I think we thought that there was a national covenant about what boundaries we wouldn't cross, as mad or betrayed as we may have felt by what had or hadn't been done in the political arena, what was or was not the circumstances of our lives. I didn't hope that we wouldn't vote for a convicted criminal or someone who was openly diminishing of others. As depressing as that is, in a reality TV shock world, I could see the possibility of that coming. For me, it was the vote for someone who was explicit about a willingness to trash our most sacred, anchoring national documents and principles, the Constitution, the rule of law, the balance of powers, the peaceful transfer of leadership. That's the betrayal I foolishly believed that the good people, my fellow citizens, wouldn't trash in the voting booth. And to me, that's what felt unforgivable And with 40 lifelong Republicans or more, secretaries of state and secretaries of the armed forces and White House officials and a former vice president who all broke party rank, a party one of whose binding values is loyalty, to warn their fellow loyal Americans of the dangers of this candidate, there can be no claims of ignorance. And we will need to talk at some point, even here in this house of worship, about how Democrats, but certainly the Democratic Party will, how Democrats, out of their humanity, or even just strategically, need to listen to the voices and needs of those voters. But if we lose our democracy, or even deform it, as a result of this election, to me, that's on the people who voted for Trump. We all have to make hard choices in this life to do the right thing, and in my opinion, they didn't make theirs. Or that's still where my Hebrew prophet angry self feels now. And I know I'm not feeling the same way that many of you are, but I think part of what we do to get through this is we name where we're feeling and we listen to each other and we enter into conversations to pull one another deeper and more fully into what this means. But I've got the pulpit and sorry. Some of you came to me this week and said that beside national betrayal, what happened in this election brought you to what you would call a crisis of faith, particularly your Unitarian and Universalist faith. This faith, which has as a fundamental commitment the inherent goodness of humanity and a trust in that, for half of our neighbors to vote what for many of us felt like for the promises of policies of dehumanization and cruelty that threatens tyranny, for folks who want to make some people illegal, whatever that means, and diminish almost every category of people, basic human goodness can feel for some of us on the chopping block. And I want to say, I hear what a spiritually scary place that can be. I also know that for many people in this room, what happened this week was no revelation at all. I know for many of us, particularly those of us who are Black or Indigenous or AAPI or Latin American, but many others too, this country has betrayed your needs and protections your whole life, and pretty much whenever it was convenient to do so. And some of you have named feeling exhausted and exasperated at having to hear the anguish of those who, incredibly, like me, were surprised by this week's results, and I hear your pain and frustration and exhaustion and anguish too. We hold all of this and more in this room. All the feelings, all the life circumstances, people still numb and people who've launched into solution making. And we have no choice as a community that covenants to be together, to move through it together and figure out what that means. And even as we do so, of course, we also have, as part of that, some planning and some practical discernment to do. Hope is not a lottery ticket that you can sit on the sofa and clutch, feeling lucky, Rebecca Solnit writes. It's an axe you break down doors with in an emergency. Hope should motivate us to act. So if we hope in the aftermath of this election that we can weather this whole and caring for our loved ones, we have some axe wielding to do. Lots of folks have already talked with and around me about their worst case scenario planning. from what's been casually mentioned about your sleep patterns last week and this week, it's clear to me we have an enormous middle-of-the-night prepper club that meets in 1,000 or 10,000 bedrooms here and probably around the country, wondering how to fortify ourselves for what will come. We should do that work together in the light of day, and we will. As we face into what is to come, let's be clear, we probably have some folks who will mostly be okay, mostly because of the luck of birth. And I'd ask folks just gently from some of what I'm hearing back in conversations, that if you think yourself to be in this camp, to be really sensitive and aware of the danger of universalizing your private optimism, because we have those who clearly will be under threat, even in the Bay Area, if we take our president-elect at his word. Currently, for instance, we already know we have a staff member whose spouse is at risk of deportation. We have members who are seeing risk rising at the border communities where their very legal American citizen family of Mexican or Latin American heritage live as border fury is whipped up. We have trans members whose gender-affirming care relies on Medi-Cal, on national funding right now, and wonder what it will mean to be made illegal and where they'll go. And we want to keep them here because they are ours. We have people who have been outspoken in their criticism of a future president and have left plenty of evidence, and a future president who vowed to take revenge on his critics, and we don't know what that's going to look like. And we all live in a city, read the editorial in the Chronicle, that will, I think we can agree, most certainly be punished with the withdrawal, at the very least, of some key funding for mental health and addiction services, for climate change mitigation, in danger, again, of not getting support when crises hit like earthquakes or forest fires, national disasters. And so we need to be ready to take care of ourselves. No matter what happens, things will get complicated for us here. And they will certainly get chaotic. We know that. And there is a chance they will get ugly. So what does that mean? Well, we'll figure it out, but I have a few initial thoughts, just initial thoughts to throw out this morning. Lifelines in the stormy waters. I think it means we have to prioritize self-care. And no one knows what self-care means for each of you but you. So it means we have to figure out, if we don't already know, what it means for us, right? And to double down on whatever it is that helps us stay whole, because we will need to cultivate caring for ourselves into a superpower that we carry into the world, into this chapter of life. And I am not a fan right now of false New Age positivity, though I hope to be positive. And I'm not a fan of blithe, we shall overcome cheerleading, though I am pretty sure we will overcome and will die trying. But whether it is nap ministry or eating more vegetables or homemade cookies or getting sun on your face every day or taking warm showers if you have access to them, or practice of daily meditation, or competitive Scrabble. I am a fan of whatever it is that keeps each of you fed and knitted back together to face another day, day by day. So if you haven't already figured it out, please do so and fortify those practices of doing what sustains you now more than ever. 2. I know we have, it's part of what I love about Unitarian Universalist communities, though it's true in other places, I know we have people here who have seen it all before and are just dusting off their toolkits for how to survive and combat the unraveling of a nation, who have lived through witch hunts once before, and who know creative resistance and what it looks like and how to do it, or to how to go underground if you need to. We need to listen to them, and you, if you're out there, you need to teach us. 3, we need to, it's obvious, I think, trust one another and stay connected. I joked with people who reached out this week, just offering mutual support, that they should come visit the Bay Area soon before it becomes one big prison camp for immigrants, trans folks, progressives, and other illegals and enemies of the state. And then I thought to myself, you know what? If I have to be in one big prison camp, this is the best one I can imagine. I mean, we will just have regular dress-up street fairs. And if they put us on strict rations, if they just give us rice and beans, think of all the fantastic Latin American versions of rice and beans we can have, right, Santana? So we will be fine. And whatever the future is, it will be a blessing and a gift to be together in this city with all of you in whatever comes. So we're going to stay tight. 4, we need to be ready to welcome folks who need us. If trans folks come from across the country to be here, America's loss will continue to be our gain. A sanctuary city for gender-affirming care. How do we get there? Come, your tired and weary folks, gorgeous folks, yearning to be yourselves. Come here. We will put Lady Liberty, a trans Lady Liberty, in the harbor, full of attitude. And if women need to come here in order to have a place to get care for appropriately for their bodies and to choose their future, come, ladies, if you're listening, come. We will find a place for you to lay your head. We will take you out for ramen in Japantown. We will walk you to the cliffs of Fort Funston to take in the extraordinary beauty of the cliffs and the ocean and the trees that hold fast against rock and storm. We will wrap you in a blanket of kindness before we send you home for life on your terms. We looked this week, we started looking into what it would mean to build showers here. We are serious about this. We need to be ready. And many of you have said, number 5, that you want to keep the joy, one of them being our professional clown. And it's a good reminder, you're right, Dennis. We must hang on to joy. We will have fun. 6, last week we talked about playful curiosity, right? Staying playful and creative possibilities as one of our best coping mechanisms as human beings in the face of existential fear and uncertainty. So we're going to keep that tool, I'm reminding us, keep that tool for staying whole. Keep dwelling in curiosity. Let's, as the poet Maggie Smith tells us, let's keep looking at this house we're in, this one we've inherited, not one we're gonna buy, one we've inherited, even when it's being trashed, and let's keep looking for the good bones in it, reminding ourselves, recommitting to making this place beautiful together, doubling down as our ancestors did in such times in this gorgeous act of faith that says, even if human beings aren't as good as we hoped they would be, and things look rough, that we will lean into a world that might just tip as we lean against it, and only if we lean against it, toward goodness and mercy, towards justice and equity, toward fairness and dignity. The dreams, moral, political, social, that we have for it. And we will feel no shame for having believed again and again and again in this possibility. Because as the Reverend Molly Hausch Gordon wrote, and we read earlier, the place we are going is around the sun on a miracle of a planet, and I want to tell you that we are still alive in a world that is so beautiful and so brutal all at once, and always has been, and it is drenched in meaning no matter where it's headed. And it matters that we love each other well, and that we drink up the beauty and resist the brutality. It matters. So in the days ahead, let's remember what we did in song embodied this morning. Remember that there may be days, I'm sure there will be, when we will wake feeling like a motherless child a long way from any place that feels like home. And in those moments, we will pray and sing that nothing evil cross this door, just that. And with luck, maybe we will strangely find that we cannot keep from singing, despite everything, that even so this world feels alive with a fundamental grace. And then perhaps in blind and stubborn faith in human possibility, we will recommit to building bridges, first to a friend if that's all we can do that day, and then to those who feel further away and harder to reach. And in the reaching, we will keep alive, like the chalice we have burning within, the flame of commitment to what sweet harmony against the odds we believe is possible. These bones are good, we say. This place could be beautiful, right? You and I, we could make this place beautiful. And so the people of faith leap, spread their wings into the storms, and trust that they can fly. And the winds of heaven meet them in the wild and uncertain places of time, of history, once again. May it be so. May it be so. May we make it so. Amen.